spelled with an E and sometimes it's not in the minutes, but there's no E.
No E.
No E.
Okay,
In the
sorry.
middle of it, it's with an E, and then other times it's right, but just
Okay,
for
I will
clarification.
correct that.
And it's tricky. But otherwise, everything's fine.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Any objection to the minutes? Okay, hearing no objection, the minutes are approved. Is there any old business? Desiree, you don't know of anything?
No.
Okay. Okay, so we're on to new business. The first is the review of the salaries of the mayor, assembly members, and school board members. There is some information.
So I was asked to provide a little bit of information. So you'll see I've got 2019 research, various details that I was asked to provide, and then the associated pages with the information, just so you could get a scope of how many meetings were going on, hours spent at the meetings, emails that members receive. You'll also find the AML salary survey, which can be helpful, cannot be helpful, because there aren't that many people who actually disclose that information for assembly members or council. And then you'll also find the draft resolution that we'll talk about later in the ordinance associated with that. So I was approaching today more as informative and discussion, and if you guys have any questions or anything you'd like me to answer, I can try.
This is Karen. Whenever there's a good moment, I have some information to add.
I think this would be a good moment. Go ahead.
Okay. I talked with the human resource staff, and I asked them if to look at all of the regular employees at the city and what their factored rate of pay is, and to look at where the mayor's signature, where his salary fell within there. And the factored rate of pay is what employees are paid on. They may get overtime and shift differential and that, but I tried to look at something simple with the factored rate of pay. And I looked at just hourly rates, even though the mayor is a salaried, and he is at $63.92. There are, as of today, or yesterday, I can't remember which day, 81 employees who make more than the mayor. Just wanted to throw that out there for some additional information.
Karen, this is Kim. You didn't ask for the same thing for assembly members, correct? Just the mayor?
I got that information, and then I realized I didn't pull it. So while we're talking, they sent me a spreadsheet. Let me see if I can. I'm having trouble on my laptop manipulating the spreadsheet, or I should say, not manipulating it, but sorting it. So let me see if I can do that while. I know the assembly salary is significantly less than the mayor's, so there'll be a much bigger number.
And Desiree, I want to, on the data that you pulled for us, I want to confirm the meeting hours. Are these mandatory, or also all meetings they attend, or just the ones that they're required to attend?
So it really depends. The regular meetings, special meetings, work sessions, and certain committees are the whole body. And then we also have committees that have a dedicated assembly member group to them. It's usually maybe 5 or 6.
So it's required for those folks, but not necessarily the rest of the
Right.
Okay.
And of course it depends on schedules. So some members attend more frequently than others.
And additionally, this wouldn't include anything that an assembly member sets up, like a constituent event in the community? Okay.
No.
Right. And these are calculated like from gavel in to gavel out?
This is calculated by scheduled hours on our calendar. Okay. And more often than not, we take up the whole time slot, if not slightly longer. Mm-hmm.
This is Pat. One of the things that I did look up was the salary of the governor, and it hasn't changed, and it's $145,000. Just as a something to look at, and it hasn't changed in I forgot how many years. Not a long number of years it's set. So, of course.
Do we know what the salary of the superintendent is for the school district?
No.
I don't.
I don't think so. I don't know, and I don't know if I have it from previous years.
I don't know, this is Desiree, I don't know what that is, but I can ask Katie with the school board to see if she can provide me that information.
Yeah, that would be just interesting to see that just as a comparison. And I just finished finding that the hourly rate for assembly members is $14.95. That's what we consider their factored rate of pay. So there, needless to say, there are probably
The majority?
1,000 or 1,500 employees, if not more, that make more than that.
Karen, that factored rate would be basically taking an annual income and dividing it by something like 2,080 hours, or was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Okay.
is correct. Yeah.
Okay. And
So just to kind of give you a perspective, looking at our general laborers that are one of our lowest paid employees, that kind of pick up trash and that type of stuff, they make $14.77 an hour.
That works for me. So, no, it's just.
one other, I'm changing gears just a little bit, but when we met last and just discussed whether to have this meeting, if I remember right, we are in the middle of the time period covered by a prior resolution covering the salary of the mayor, but not of the assembly members. Is that an accurate recollection? In other words, we met and we had passed a resolution which prescribed a salary year by year for the mayor that extends beyond 2019, if I remember right.
I think so.
But I'm not sure that that is correct for the assembly or school board.
So the assembly and school board you guys did last year,
Yeah.
and I think you have it laid out for 3 years.
We do. Oh, we do have it also for the assembly school.
I believe so.
2019, 2020, 2021.
But
That doesn't bar us.
Desiree,
Oh.
when I read some of your attachments, so I think it says that, and maybe it's a draft attachment, so maybe I'll just take that back in the mind. I was looking at that we had to look at the salaries no more than 1 year, or no less than 1 year.
The draft ordinance, you mean?
Yeah.
Right, and so that's the draft ordinance to put into code saying that you guys should essentially meet and have at least an organizational meeting once a year. And whether you decide to review salaries or not, you guys should still be meeting.
Yeah, because I think that's what we talked about, is there wasn't anything in the code where we wanted to put something in to,
Right,
so we have a foundation.
correct.
And just like I just mentioned to Steve, that while we last year did work on resolutions on the salaries of school board and assembly with a 3-year walkout, that doesn't bar us from doing something again if we so choose, especially with all of this information that we just got thanks to Desiree and Karen's research. So just putting that out there.
Yep, no, I appreciate that. So I do see that. Maybe I remembered it backwards. So what is
the
the
mayor?
status of our resolution for the mayor?
So I'm just looking. The mayor was 2015.
Because I just want to ask something real quick, just to make sure I understand. Is the salary, should we decide to increase any salaries, if anybody that's currently in office would not be impacted, it would just be for those that may be reelected in the future or reelected. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, you're right, 2015, Pat.
Yeah, it's in here. So 20
So we have
years.
not adjusted the mayor's salary since 2015 then?
Correct.
Yes.
It is a yearly, it was just that one, yeah. I'm looking at
These are.
two
in
resolutions,
reverse.
2015-1 as amended, and then 2015-2, yeah, they're in reverse. And
Oh, the other one
first
was,
one is a
the 2 is for the mayor and the,
fraction of a cent problem
yeah,
we were dealing with.
that we resolved that.
I remember that. Okay.
But 2 is the actual.
So Desiree, can I
Yes.
ask a question
Mhm.
on the AML?
Okay.
That was done, two seconds sideways on my laptop. My laptop is not nice to me right now. Can you tell me, was that done last year, did you say, or?
Oh, I should have brought it with me. It is the current publication. I believe it's the 2019 salary survey.
Okay.
I did notice that the this is Kim, for Karen's benefit, I did notice on their salary survey, they don't include hours worked. So it'd be more of something we'd have to research about, like, are they having the same number of meetings? I would assume based on population, it would decrease, kind of relative to the population, but just not knowing that.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing I kind of wondered now, that I'm kind of looking at this is, do they provide any benefits, medical coverage at all?
So if you look in the little notes section to the right, certain
Oh.
boroughs and cities do detail whether there's health insurance or any kind of allowance included.
Okay.
And some of them seem more like stipends, the meeting stipends,
Right.
than anything else. But like if you look at City and Borough of Juneau, it's $6,000 a year plus health insurance. Matsu's $1,100 a month. So there's kind of a wide variety.
What,
Yeah.
what does the column job match mean for same, more, and less? What does that mean?
It's about the header, so it's council or assembly member,
okay.
and job match.
Gotcha.
It would fall under there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And as Marianne would remind us that, in a sense, for assembly, they are public servants, semi-volunteer, with a full-time volunteer.
With trying to hold down jobs to feed their families.
Right.
I do know that several of them recently have had to quit their full-time jobs in order to
Really?
do the work on the assembly,
Oh, that's not
which is
good.
a financial burden. So I'm keeping that in mind when I'm looking at some of this.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, and just to kind of weigh in on that, I do think right now that assembly, we have a nice balance of women and men, I think more so than we've had in the past. It appears that way anyway. And then we do have some, this is going to just sound terrible, but a few younger folks on the assembly. But I do think it is, with that salary, expecting them to put in the work that they're doing and, take care of the family if they are the, I don't know what any of their situations are, if they're single parents or what, but, I think, you're kind of looking at somebody who's retired, that can give that time and not have it, potentially negatively impact them from a financial place and being able to provide. And I like the mix of our assembly right now because it seems like we have like a nice broad range, and I would hate for that to change because it seems like in years past it's mostly been folks who are retired, and I think we want to have kind of reflect a little bit more of our community.
This is Kim. One thing I want to keep in mind when looking at this is that when you look at the Alaska legislature, which is not exactly the same, but we have, for example, on the west side, we have 2 assembly members, but there are several House members who represent a smaller chunk of human beings. technically work a shorter schedule, although that's been extending, have more than one staff person dedicated to them. So I just want to keep that in mind when we think about our assembly, they're in charge of representing a larger swath of people with, and maybe Desiree can confirm their staffing situation. I know there are some staff people to the assembly members, but their hours are limited, and do they share those people?
So each assembly member is allowed to contract with an aide, but they are only allowed a certain stipend to pay the aide from, which is $11,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to contract with somebody to help you in your work, and you can only pay them $11,000. But that also includes people who have to pay for their iPads, they pay travel and all of that out of that $11,000 stipend. So it does limit their resources and aid help. Mm-hmm.
One thing I don't know if we could even measure, but I also think about the fact of how many bills get passed in the legislature versus how many ordinances are, is our assembly working on and passing, and just the workload and how much research these assembly people are doing when they go home at night on these documents, because they don't have staff to run their bills for them like they do in the legislature. So just thinking about those relative relationships that they have.
So I have heard from a number of assembly members who say that they work their full-time job and then they, on top of that, put in probably another 30 or 40 hours dealing with constituents, doing community council, coming here and doing the meetings and committees here. And then there's all just the research and the reading and just, being a good assembly member means putting in the time and effort to read your binder that's 5 or 6 inches thick every other week. So it is a significant amount of time, and there are a number of assembly members who have quit their jobs this year or in the past year.
Did they state the reason?
Because they want to focus on being an assembly member. I know a couple.
Quit
their day
regular
job, yes.
Yeah,
They quit
okay.
their day job
Because
so
of
they could
workload.
focus
Yeah.
on just being in the assembly.
I want to add one more thing. Well, I think it was Pat, you said, public service and all that, and I get that, because I don't think we should look at turning these into, full-time, like regular employees and have them look like employees. I think that takes away from the whole part of the public service. But I do think that we should, it was kind of shocking to see how low that salary was. That if we could look at potentially making moves in that area. But I do think we have to be careful so that they don't look like, that they're regular full-time employees. And I want to ask one more thing. Desiree, so I think, and I may be wrong on this, but do they get some sort of stipend for benefits? Because I don't think that they're on our benefit plan, are they?
They do receive a stipend for health insurance. I don't know what it is specifically off of the top of my head, but I can get that information.
Because that's the other thing I think sometimes we tend to forget, if they're getting a stipend for benefits. I do think, that becomes part of their compensation as well, so I don't want that to be lost.
It might be in one of
I'm
our
just
previous.
I'm looking.
Oh, good. I was
It's
same agenda.
$250 biweekly to serve as a medical allowance.
So $500 a month.
Yeah. And
And they can use that for whatever they want. Either they buy insurance or they just, it's part of their compensation, right?
right.
So that changes the rate, I think, a little bit.
So they're currently
About 20%, seems.
so for 2019, for those who were elected or re-elected to the Assembly as of April 2019, their salary was $31,096. and it's to increase 1.5% for the 2 years following. So 2020 and 2021.
So I'm going to just throw out something really wild, and it's just, the other thing, I don't know if what all of the situations are with benefits, but is it something that the group would be even willing to entertain? Is what if we tried to get them on the municipal benefits?
Karen, is that PERS? Is that,
Well,
no, it's not.
Well, PERS would be for retirement.
Oh, right, you're right.
The medical benefit side of things, and I don't even know if it's possible. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. It's something that, we certainly could explore, but I don't know if that's just too big of a leap if we say, we'll leave the compensation as is, but because the employees get, what's each of the non-represented and executive employees, I don't remember what the amount is that they get a month or bi-weekly, or they can opt out of insurance and then get $300. But for those that may need insurance, maybe that is something that, we try and adopt it. And like I said, I don't even know if it's possible. So it's just another way to look at this. And then when they are not reelected, when their term ends, then they would have the ability to purchase COBRA on their own.
Let's see what
I
is
don't know what anybody's thoughts are.
That's an interesting option.
currently it says that members not using their entire medical allowance may roll excess funds pre-tax into a medical savings account, a 401k or a 457 account, or as taxable salary. If medical coverage exceeds the medical coverage cost to the assembly member exceeds the medical allowance, the additional cost will be deducted pre-tax from the regular salary. The medical allowance is not included in the base salary referenced in sections 1 through 4.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we don't want to mess with that thing, because that actually sounds pretty good.
Now maybe we better just leave that part alone.
Well, I wish Barb were here to answer one question, because I don't know if Desiree can answer it, but and it's how much has the nature of the workload for an assembly member changed? I mean, when you mentioned this, some say they're putting in an extra 30 or 40 hours a week. What was it like 10 years ago? Is it the same? Has it materially changed?
We could probably look at census information based on population, huh?
No.
Well, I don't think it's
No.
really that. It's kind of just the nature of how the assembly is operating.
Right. I
How the
can say
expectations have changed.
I've only been here a little over a year now, but when I started, we were under a different chair and there were far less meetings. And we have a new chair now and meetings have gone up, but then our assembly members find them beneficial. They are being, I think, far more productive because of this. So I guess take that as you will. It probably depends on who the chair is, because the chair dictates meetings and committees.
And the packet that they get hasn't, I mean, the size has always been, as long as I can remember, it's been like, she can't see me measuring, but it's been like that for years. And if you follow the assembly, look at the agendas and stuff, you see all the work sessions. And it's...
Yeah, it also depends on what the mayor is putting forward, too.
Right.
Right.
And that they really don't have any control over.
That's true.
So I would say that it's pretty much the same. I think if anyone who runs for the assembly should know that there's going to be this much work involved. It's not just a Tuesday night meeting every 2 weeks and a packet that you get on the Friday before. There's a lot more stuff that goes on.
Pat, I don't disagree, but
But yeah.
but does it narrow the number of human beings, like good people
Right.
that could be on the assembly, because they go, oh yeah, I know what it entails, and I would have to sell all of my, like I'd have to live in a box in order to be on the assembly. So just making sure that you get both of those things.
Right.
They know what they're committing to, and depending on who the chair and the mayor is, the workload can shift. But also making sure, that it's not putting you through a hardship to do
Right.
the work of the people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question there, Karen, what it is?
So are there any thoughts that if we were to make an adjustment, what we would look at?
Well, for the assembly, we've already set it through April of 2021. So I don't,
Right, but I think we can adjust that. We can look at it once a year
we could.
based on the document. I mean, I'm just loading it.
Well, I'll weigh in just on that. I think that, my view of no change is to adjust for inflation. So generally in the way it seems it's generally gone is that if you don't see a compelling reason to move off of a current level of compensation, that doesn't mean keeping it the same. It means keeping it constant in an inflation-adjusted way. And that's basically, whether that was the intent of all the committee members, I can't say, but that's basically what the resolutions did, was hold those salaries, both for the Assembly and School Board, unchanged for the 3-year period.
Actually, they're changed because there's a 1.5%.
Right, and that's
Inflation.
what I'm saying is it's unchanged in real purchasing power.
Right.
It's really that's kind of the no change
Right. alternative.
If you don't adjust the dollars, you're actually decreasing. So, that's I think another way of looking at whether we acted on on information at that time to make an adjustment or not. Basically, I think we did not. I think we took an action that protected existing salaries against inflation, or our best estimate of inflation.
Yeah, we didn't
So
have
one
all
of
this
the-
information yet.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Karen.
So, if you've got the assembly, so are they 1.5 for each year out to, you say, past 2021?
Yes,
And so it's a 1.5 increase every year?
yes.
And then what about the mayor? Did we do the same thing for them? I think you guys said the last time it was done was in 2016.
2015.
2015, and no, it was a one-time.
So we didn't build in any,
No, we didn't do any increase for any percent increase for inflation for the mayor.
We did do the school board, same as the assembly as well, 3-year. No, I can just speak for myself, but I was new to the board when we started on those ordinances, and just understanding what they were being paid in the history of the ordinances, but not knowing this information that Desiree has provided about meetings and emails, other boroughs in our state, things like that. I would say that the 1.5 increase that we talked about was mostly just keeping up with inflation, like Steve mentioned, to protect those salaries. Thinking that in the future years we'd do a little bit more digging into if these really are commensurate with the amount of work we're doing.
This is old.
So, Desiree, in April, how many assembly seats are up for reelection?
6.
Oh, thank you.
And then 2021 is the mayor, and then we go to the 5 assembly members.
And they're trying to add another assembly member for downtown.
Yes.
This is from,
If this is something we decided we wanted to act on, like we wanted to do something, how does this work with the budget cycle that we're currently in?
So it would have to end up being a first quarter amendment.
Okay.
To increase the salaries for the 6 that are elected.
Okay.
What does the first order amendment mean? That doesn't, is that a hardship or is that something that's routine?
It's routine.
Okay.
So the budget's adopted hopefully in November on the 19th, and then everything's kind of re-looked over. I believe it's March or April, and they do a 1Q amendment. And so it encompasses a lot of things that, you know, it revises revenues and various other changes in like labor and unforeseen things that they weren't expecting. So it is routine, yes.
Got it.
Whether we have money or not is a different story, but
the last time that we looked, when we had statistics, this is from 2012, with projected employment changes to 2022. This was from the Department of Labor, and it was whoever pulled this was looking at cities comparable in size to Anchorage. They're outside
For elected officials?
for elected
Oh.
officials, yeah.
So I know the city, when we do contract negotiations with the union, depending on the union, is sometimes we look at the cost of living for the last, like it depends on the contract, go back 5 years, and then we do an average of those 5, and sometimes it's 3 on how we're going to project forward, because you know we don't really have that information when we're sitting at the table negotiating contracts. So sometimes what we say is it can't exceed the average of the last 5 years cost of living, or 3 years. It like that depends on the union contract.
We haven't, since we're just looking at all this data, we haven't talked at all about the school board. Is there any additional information on the school board?
so
This
I
is
had.
I mean, other than what's in the packet,
Yeah.
but I mean, as
Oh.
far as,
No, I am unaware of the going-ons of the school board myself. I can ask Katie for additional information if you have specific questions, but I don't really know what they're up to.
okay. We don't have anecdotal information like how
No,
much
two
extra.
of the people that I know are both retired that are on the school board, so
Yeah.
retirees, so we're not facing any sort of hardship there.
Good. Desiree, do we know if the school board has all these other meetings in addition to their regular ones? I mean, I imagine they have some at least for budget and such, but I just don't see how to the extent of the assembly.
This is Pat. I don't think they have as many as the assembly has. They do have some outside, additional meetings, but they're not as many.
Okay.
So pages 4 and 5 of your packet of research is basically a log of the meetings that the school boards had, and it includes their committees and work sessions and executive sessions on top of the actual school board. I can't speak to how long any of the meetings last or what the work sessions cover, but it is worth noting that they do have a finance committee and all of those
Governance,
things.
yeah,
Right.
all that.
And like I said, I can ask for additional information and see if they'd be willing to provide more detail on hours, but I can't guarantee that. Like with the assembly schedule, I put that information together on hours.
And Katie is their only staff person, I think.
Okay, I think so.
Well, it'd be interesting to get a sense of the role of the committee on this. I probably should go last, but people would say, you know, what they would like to do or what they're leaning towards wanting to do. That would be helpful. Anyone wants to volunteer?
Well, I'm leaning towards not making any change in the assembly this year, for this coming year.
And what about school board? What about mayor?
School board the same. Mayor, I'd like to look at that a little more.
Okay.
This is Kim. After getting this information and looking at the hourlies, even understanding that there's a little bit more because of that healthcare stipend that they may or may not use, I am very interested in actually taking a look at working on salary increases for those assembly members. Thinking of, I attend assembly meetings myself as much as I can in community councils, and I can't imagine doing that tenfold for somewhere a little bit north of $15 an hour. That's if we want to attract the type of people that are dedicated public servants. I don't think that's going to be feasible for much longer. I feel similarly about the school board, but not having as much information. I'd temper that with not having that information. Looking at the mayor, I'd be interested in looking at the mayor for the simple reason that we haven't revisited it in so long. And another important thing to look at, especially when we're talking about how much work the mayor gives to the assembly and vice versa. I'm very interested in looking at that, talking about the assembly salaries the most. It seems the most stark, especially since the last 3 assembly meetings I've gone to went till midnight. So,
Karen?
I pretty much will echo what Kim said. Based on the information we have from the school board, if we get more information and that, but right now I don't know that we necessarily need to adjust them, but if we get more information, I think we should at least consider that. But on the surface right now, they seem to be fine. I think the assembly really needs to be looked at. I was really pretty shocked at how low it was and what we're asking them to do. And then obviously I think we do have to take care of the mayor's salary as well.
Well, and then I think my view is that I'll start with the mayor. On the one hand, the existing salary seems like a reasonable salary, but I am bothered by the lack of any adjustment for inflation in that one. I know that we did pretty carefully consider a lot of data, and if I recall, it was nationwide data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we came up with that salary, and then we made a decision we thought was just right, or the best just right estimate we could make 4 years ago. We have let inflation go on for 4 years since then, and probably in retrospect should have put some kind of provision in to adjust it, and we didn't. So I think that would be probably the most compelling reason that I would like to look at that salary, is just because of the inflation issue. And if it is as much outside work time as what the members are talking about on the assembly, and obviously I'd be open to looking at that as well. I'm not sure that I would be. I think it would be a good idea to make a dramatic adjustment. just,
It's just a feeling that it seems like an adjustment if we make one better to be implemented over time, but that's just an opinion and it's not based on anything other than what seems like a good approach to it.
School board?
So, I think the way that this works, and Desiree, you can keep me straight on this. We won't take any action today.
No.
But if we want to consider taking action, we should have a motion that makes something fairly specific as a proposal, and then notice that, and then have a real hearing to act on it.
So I have you guys scheduled for that date in November. When is that?
4th.
Is it the 4th?
I think it's later.
What day was that? Did you say December 4th or November 14th?
It's
No,
November.
or maybe it's the 7th.
It is. Sorry, I have so many meetings.
Can't be
on
the
my
7th.
schedule.
Can't be the 7th because the
I was
7th.
having some challenges with
It's the
computer stuff.
20th.
20th.
I'm gonna delete this one and add this one, so I kind of got lost on.
November 20th.
November
Karen.
20th, 4 p.m. here in City Hall, hopefully upstairs in 240, might be down here in 155, but that's kind of location. But I do have you guys scheduled for a public hearing. And my intent was, if you guys didn't want to follow through, I would have just canceled the meeting. But it's up. It's been posted since we decided on dates, whenever that was at the end of September. And it is noticed as a public hearing.
So does that mean that we need to give you some information for resolutions or for?
Ideally, yeah, so I can have something drafted for you guys to look
work
at.
from? So,
And the wording of it would say, that's a proposal on the floor, but it's subject to amendment, up or down, right? Basically.
right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
yeah, they'd be draft.
Right, it'll be a draft, and I can even start sending it out, probably not this week, but I can email it to everybody, and then you guys can email me directly. I can take in edits or suggestions and then send it out to the body. We don't want to email everybody, but just to me, and I can work out to the commission from there, and we can even get a couple of drafts produced before the 20th. So you guys have
That sounds
something
good.
maybe more formal and more concrete to work
Right,
off
some
November
figures.
20th. Yeah.
What kind of numbers do you want to talk about? I mean, do we want to talk numbers?
Well, what kind of numbers do the committee members want to talk about?
Well,
Could we look at what the cost of living has been for the, when we talk about the mayor, for the last time he got an increase was in 2015. Can we look at what the cost of living has been each year since? I'm not saying that we should do a big percentage, but it'd be good to look at what those were.
Yeah, let's
To have an idea of how far behind we are.
So I can research
and
that.
most people have this, Office of Management and Budget. I know Courtney Peterson should have them. She probably has the cost of living. She probably should be a pretty dark up.
Okay. So I'll ask for that from Courtney. And then I will ask Katie from the school board for some additional information. And I can try, I don't think this week's gonna work. Maybe the start of next week, I can get that information out, put a really rough draft together of a resolution. And we can go from there unless you guys have more specific numbers that you're willing to throw out right now, or percentages.
I have a question on the assembly. Since there's a resolution 2018 that goes through April of 2021, would we be doing an amendment to that, or would we be doing a new resolution?
You'd be doing a new resolution.
Okay.
I think the resolution
Would amend that.
would probably expressly say that it's replacing that.
Replacing this. Okay. I just want to make sure we get that covered.
Karen, this is Kim. As somebody who's kind of worked in the environment of looking at salaries, do you have an idea of what we should be proposing on the assembly, or?
Yeah, well, that was kind of tricky, because it's just so low, but also, like I said before, it's not really, they're not meant to be employees and all of that. I know you've built in some cost of living over time. Looking at the spreadsheets, I was a little bit surprised to see what, even how Fairbanks and the Valley and stuff look. It just seems to me they had a little bit different salaries. And I will say, as somebody who's completed a lot of those salary surveys, sometimes it isn't you don't get the full picture of really, how the compensation works, just because there isn't really a minimum or maximum in there. So you kind of wing it the best you can when you're filling out those. So if you guys are okay, I'd like to actually call them and talk to them to see what all they're, providing to assembly. I mean, some of them we can see where they get a car allowance, internet, stuff, but I'd like to see if there's something else that maybe just didn't get on in those sections. And then I can forward that to Desiree, and then it can be passed on.
Yeah, just one of the things.
I mean,
go ahead.
we also got to be careful. When you look at, $14, let's just say $15 an hour, and we can't double that salary.
No.
I mean, my God, I think that's just going to send shockwaves. Is going to be problematic for folks to swallow any of that. So that's where, kind of going back and looking at, you built in the 1.5 cost of living, but what was it actually? So maybe when we look at the cost of living for the mayor salaries, that we can also look at is, did we meet what the cost of living was for the last few years, or were we ahead or behind? And maybe that'll give us a way to get a little bit more in there. It doesn't mean we have to, but I just don't think we can make too big of a jump. We'd have to stair step it.
Well, I doubt that we're far off. I mean, nationally, those numbers get publicized all the time, and it always seems that it's between 1% and 2%. And so if we were shooting at 1.5%, I'd really be surprised if we were far behind or far ahead.
Well, the one thing is, that's for also looking at the benefits, so because that's part of compensation, depending on if they're given benefits or they're given a stipend of sorts to use or to convert it to a salary. But some of the other ones, you got to look at those other things that they're given. Some of them are given a car, some of them are given, computers, some get staff. There's all those other things that fall under compensation that we might not normally think about, and our assembly folks aren't getting any of those things, at least not to my knowledge. I think they get a parking place. So that's something I'm kind of curious to see is what else some of these other folks are getting, because that all plays a little bit of a factor in this. Desiree, do they get a municipal computer or laptop or anything, or are they all using their own?
A lot of the assembly members use their own equipment, but a couple do have iPads, and they are paid for through their stipend.
Okay.
The same stipend you were talking about before?
That pay aids,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
Well, I think we just we need a little bit more information to figure out what's the best percentage to go on, because I think whatever we increase, we have to explain, our methodology for doing it. So looking at, the last 5 years or whatever's appropriate for the cost of living to see how we fall in there. And then if we look at other cities to see what the sample people are being provided, that may be in addition to compensation.
Mhm.
For myself, I don't want to discount that too much, but I think that what's going to make the biggest difference to me is something that's going to be hard to quantify, and it's because it's so anecdotal, but it's really how much time outside of what you document as a meeting is actually going on. And if it's a 30 or 40 hour investment of time per week, that's one thing that's really different than if it's just what's noted on this summary of how many official meetings there have been. I mean, it's a huge difference.
Right.
But how to compile that, because it really is anecdotal and it's not verifiable. It's probably, like calling and asking people, it's kind of a question. It's an open question. But if it is that much time, it is a pretty compelling argument that we should at least be trying to make it affordable or to make it worth people's while. And to be fair, I mean, it's more than on top of everything else, it's what's fair. And I'm not hearing the same compelling argument on the school board, but that might be just because we just haven't heard. It might be just as much an issue there, and we just don't know it.
Yeah,
And
we don't have as much information there.
And I hate to have another meeting, but it's something we should at least consider, is whether we actually should do this right and have another meeting before we have the public hearing for final action.
Yeah, Steve, I would agree with you. I think we should have one more meeting before our final one. It's just we have too many things that we don't have quite yet, and I think it's important that we do it right.
Would that, Desiree, that would take over our November 20th meeting, because don't you have to notice a meeting?
So
Well,
a
not
couple
if it doesn't have
options.
public hearing,
We
yeah.
could do a second informational meeting November 20th, or I can schedule another meeting prior to then. But you guys have crazy schedules, and
Yeah,
that's
well,
the
So,
problem.
if we could have another meeting prior to the 20th, that would be awesome.
Right. Like we can totally
Okay.
do that. I can
Okay.
schedule for that, but it depends on who's available and whether you all are obviously
Because
available.
the other part of it is if we take action, it all has to be done 30 days before the end of the fiscal year, or the end of the year, the calendar year.
Yes.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
would be
that's why
on
we kind of don't want to change to November 20th.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And what time?
It is almost 5.
Oh, do we have time to talk about these, the
The draft resolution.
draft resolution?
They're very simple,
I
right?
I think they're,
Yeah, and then before we get off the second meeting issue,
Okay.
I just want to say, at least for me, the next 2 weeks are actually of the best time.
Oh, okay.
And then I've got travel coming up again in November until about the time of our next meeting. But I'm in town Monday through Friday next week and the week after.
So, really quick looking at my calendar. If you guys are available the 31st in the afternoon, that's a Thursday.
Only if we can dress up.
Oh, right. I mean, it's Halloween, obviously.
as long
but-
as we're through in time for the hockey game.
When is the hockey game?
7 o'clock.
Oh, I would hope we would be done.
Yeah.
What day of the week is it?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Oh, and you
Halloween.
said what time, Desiree?
Time is
Is
open
our-
to you guys. If you even prefer an earlier meeting, I can do an earlier meeting too.
I am getting on a plane on the 1st, so I would prefer an earlier meeting on the 31st, but I can make the 31st work.
Okay.
When you say earlier, what
Oh,
works for you?
Well, we could do a doodle poll or something, but
Yeah.
anything in the afternoon works for me.
Okay.
You know.
31st.
Early afternoon.
Early afternoon,
Yeah.
something like that. Okay,
Yeah.
I will send out a poll for the 31st.
Shall we dress up?
You do it.
Apparently.
And I would, I mean, it would be nice to have the cost of living information,
Okay.
just for the sake of completeness.
Yeah.
And then whatever, I know, Pat, I'm sorry, we're going to be
That's
fighting
okay.
up against 5.
I'm not, I just want to make sure.
As far as Karen, you doing your own research, I guess that's okay. I just want to make sure we aren't violating any rule about open meetings or anything if it doesn't come directly
well,
through staff.
That's problematic, then maybe,
I think you guys as
Decorated.
commission members and really any member of, public service is allowed to do research and better inform yourselves. If you want to share with the other members, that's where it becomes a little bit problematic, and so that's where I would ask any of you to send me the information, and then I can get it out to everybody. But we don't do a reply all email kind of thing. Yeah. But you are more than welcome to do research, because that's just you being a better commission member and being more informed,
Right.
right?
yeah.
Okay, I don't know if we're on a hard deadline of 5, but if she's looking at the other draft resolution, have we all reviewed it?
Yeah, I have.
Is there any objection to, just,
The other option
Notice.
is you can review it and we can have you guys pass it on the 31st.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I also
It's the
emailed.
easiest.
I
Yeah, you gave us
emailed
the-
everybody
Yeah.
the whole packet.
Yeah, I
so
printed that,
okay,
so I've got it.
Yeah, there's nothing problematic in this resolution.
right, and it's been reviewed by council, and
Oh, good.
it's pretty much good to go, unless you see anything that you really want to change.
let's act on it on the 31st.
Okay,
sounds-
okay.
It sounds like it's going to be non-controversial.
Okay.
There, but just for the sake of time. We do have, where'd my agenda go?
I need to do a motion
we
to
have-
extend the meeting today at 5 o'clock. Do you need a motion to extend the meeting?
I move we extend the meeting 10 minutes.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to extend past 5. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the meeting's extended beyond 5. And maybe with the permission of everybody, I'd call on audience participation first and then member comments.
Okay.
I'm okay
Is
with
there
that.
anyone from the
So-
public who wishes to say anything? There is one. Okay. Please state your name for the record.
Before I begin, just one question. What time on the 31st?
We haven't said.
We haven't decided yet.
Okay. I'll start my time. My name is Eugene Carlhaven. I represent myself and follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more like the public interest. Number 1, notice the meeting, time, date, location, that's the open meetings law. This was noticed for 240 room. Nowhere else should have been here. I checked everything while you were doing stuff. It's the case. In the most recent email, it's a fact. Second, you started before the time of notice. That's another violation of the Meetings Act. Third, roll call, know who you are. Nice to have 10 cards not there, but I don't know who you all are. You need to have identity, particularly the party on the phone. Now let's go to the thing. Your job in your review. But I noticed that you're working in a vacuum of dealing with the issues that are before you. And a vacuum is the result, and you're making decisions. I looked at what you got so far. And oh, by the way, for the record, no agenda, no packet on the website. Public has no clue what you're doing. So how do they know what you're discussing? And how they think about coming here? Look at the time, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. How many people in Anchorage right now are working? Oh wait, they're just getting off of work, just in time to end your meeting. That's another situation. Second thing, public hearing. Notice, yes, I saw that. November 20th, whatever date you said in November, I saw that, yes. It's upstairs, 240, smaller room. You need to be where the people are, connect with the people, public hearing in Lusac Library, video, audio, and during the evening, and not in conflicting with the school board assembly. Now, what I found amazing in closing is, and I have 1 minute and 14 seconds to spare, I have a timer. You don't know what these people do, how much time they're involved with the assembly or the school board. How many of you people, when was the last time any one of you attended a school board meeting? Now, I live in the valley, but I'm known to be at some point government watchdog, and I've seen what they do. But the thing is, I'd like to remind you, there's a state budget crisis going on, a state budget crisis. And the second most important decision the assembly has to decide on outside of elections is the budget. And you have to reward them for doing a good job, but not doing a bad job. And look what they did on the budget. 11:45, approximately, Tuesday night, they had 7 public hearings on the budget. They combined it together, which they were public with only about 3 minutes. Meeting had to stop at 12 o'clock. That's the contempt. We're talking about the second most important decision, the budget, which includes the cost of the clerk and so forth. And in reverse, out in the borough, what they do is nothing else on the agenda is only the budget. And they have 3 separate public hearings. They still don't get it. And I'm on my 8th year full time, and I continue seeing violations of the Open Meetings Act and state laws provide a reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard. And I've yet to see an election since 2012 in Anchorage, which I've declared everyone illegitimate, because there's no place for public comment. The Assembly approves and certifies the election without the public to say what they feel. So how can you reward them for anything? What should be in question is, how should you be punishing them for not doing the job? And that's all I have to say with approximately,
You're at your time.
my time is exactly up.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who wants to testify? Okay. Member comments?
This is Kim. Thank you, Desiree, for compiling this information. That helped us kind of take some next steps.
No comment.
Okay. Karen?
No additional comments, thank you.
Okay, so
Need a motion?
we will tentatively, we're going to notice another meeting, trying to make it the 31st.
I'll send out a
At that
poll.
time that's agreeable, that works for everybody. And if there's no other business, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, without objection, we're adjourned.
That's good to me.